Okay, we're gonna do box cars, stock cars, and reefers now. As far as stock cars go, and if you know your marks, you know how rare this thing is. For some reason, the Pennsylvania stock car is very, very, very elusive. It's hen's teeth. This one here, as you can see, is not in the best of shape, and I paid a lot of money for it. And if you get into this line, you're probably going to do the same. You're going to pay a lot of money for one, and they always just don't look that good. I don't know what it is about them. It's just the way it is. Um, the Santa Fe stock car is a little bit more plentiful. Still a little bit harder to find, but I got a few of them. Then the only reefer they made was the PFE. It's real beautiful lithography when you get a real nice clean one. What's interesting about this is this car was never available for separate sale. These were only put into sets. So if you ever see a box for these, which I don't have one, it'll say box cars, hoppers, flat cars, tank cars, yada yada yada. But it will not advertise a refrigerator car, or a reefer, I should say, because it was never available for separate sale. This one here does have a weird variation you can run into where they have red ends on them. I don't have any red end cars. A couple of them are like that. I think the UP car can do that too. You find those, they're worth quite a bit of money. Couldn't tell you why they did that, but it was a thing that they did occasionally. Here's the Pennsylvania car, pretty plain. But that's just the way they are. You also notice a lot of these have that 3555 on them. Even the stock cars have some variation of it. And then here we get into the pacemaker, which doesn't have one at all. There's a couple variations on this one. You get them without rivets, with rivets. I don't have one without rivets. I thought I did, and I didn't. Very shocking. I really thought I did, so I can't show you that one. Here's another one that has a lot of variations. The DF car. As you can see, this one here, pretty plain, but it's got some stuff going on there. But then, ba-bam! Here's the other variation where it's got a lot more on it. And what's interesting is typically as production went on with these things, Marx would eliminate things to cheapen up the process, to keep costs down. And what's interesting on this one is this is a plainer one, which would usually be later, but it's got earlier metal couplers. And here, as you can see, this one, which would be a little bit older, but still more decorated, has got plastic couplers. Go figure. You can also tell on this one has a black end, and this one's got a green end. That's something you'll see with these occasionally too. I don't think there's any kind of specialty variation with these like there are with the butterflies don't always fit, like with red ends, but it's just a thing you'll come across. And then here is the New Haven car. Again, pretty plain. This is a pretty nice one, but as you can see, they put a lot of detail on these. They put a lot of work into these. This was definitely a line that Lewis Marx and company put a lot of love and tender care into, and had a lot of pride in it. Here's the UP Challenger car. That's a nice one. This is kind of a hard one to get. That's real vibrant. This color just seems to fade really bad on these. But as you can see, point out here, red door. And in typical Marx fashion, there's some black doors on this one because you're not going to stop the production line. If you run out of something, you're just going to keep going. That is truly a hallmark of the Marx company there. You'll see a lot of weird variations sometimes because they were not going to shut down production. They had toys to make. Okay. As far as hoppers go, they only made one hopper. There are some variations on this. I don't have any of them. I actually got these two here to show you something interesting, though, that you'll run into a lot with the 3/16 cars. The variation, though, I'll go over real quick. Some of these will have an extra brace there between the stairs and the edge there. But what I was going to show you on these, as you can see, I believe it's this one. This one still has a riveted truck on it. And what you'll run into a lot with these, because these are actually more of an S scale American Flyer type size, what you'll see, because I had to do with this, as you can see, I bolted trucks onto it. This one was one I received. I had American Flyer trucks on it, and you'll run into that a lot with these. Luckily, you can usually pick up new trucks for these. I shouldn't say new, but used ones, and convert them back to Marx. It's not hard. I just put a nut and a bolt and a couple washers on there to keep down the friction, and a little bit of super glue, and you're good to go. But yeah, the hoppers on these are pretty. It's very involved on these hoppers. They go for a little bit more money than the usual ones, but the bottoms actually pop open and everything. It's a shame they didn't make these in more road names, because they're just really nice cars. Let's see. Next, we have the gondolas. Gondolas some of them are super easy to find. Some are harder to find. Lots of variations. Here, the nickel plate road. This one's a little bit harder to find, along with this Pennsylvania. Hence why mine are a little bit rougher looking than usual. But you know, you can find them out there. Then we get the Texas and Pacific. Notice it just says T&P here. And then we get to this guy here, and they wrote it out. Another thing too on some of these is the ends, I believe sometimes are a little different. They'll have different lithography on them. Just kind of a weird little variant. That's not an original logo. They just fit, so I left them in there. And then here's a B&O. Now this is a reproduction, but these are original. These little tubes, sewer tubes or whatever you want to call them. Marx. These cars sometimes came with them, sometimes they didn't. You'll see these on the plastic ones too occasionally. And then we got the tall boys here, the C&O, as you can see. Rivet detail, no rivet detail. This one's kind of smushed a little bit. You'll see that on these big ones often. They'll be kind of smushed. Unless it's really bad, I tend to just leave them alone, you know. Trucks on these are beautiful too. If you haven't really took a moment to admire those. And what's funny is they made two cabooses. They made a reading, which I don't have a good one that I'm willing to show. Sorry. But what's interesting is the reading caboose was produced pre-war. The NYC caboose only came post-war. And what's funny is they never did a reading tender. They were always marked for the New York Central. So as far as pushing these for being, you know, super scale, super this, super that, super authentic, giving you the wrong caboose. It's kind of a funny little side story. These look like they would be illuminated. They're not. It looks like chances are they planned to illuminate these and just never did. The readings also, interestingly enough, sometimes I believe have holes punched in the sides for like marker lamps or something maybe, which never happened either. Just a weird thing. Now the lithography on these NYCs, they didn't put as much effort into these, I don't feel, as you would expect, considering the rest of the lineup. They're kind of plain, but it's just the way it is. But it's a very nice caboose.